Okay, hi, I'm Will Carls. This is my speech on racist education in the Midwest. This is my audience. All right, then I'll get started. So, Sarah is a Midwest education teacher in Columbus, Ohio, and she's leading a small group activity for a group of kindergartners with her new boss, her principal, watching the class. As she goes through the activity, she asks each of them a question, and they take turns answering. When the activity is done, Sarah finds she's taken to the side by her boss, and her boss tells her that she was unfairly biasing herself towards the white students and not talking with the Mexican ones as much. Now, Sarah was very surprised by this comment because she didn't think she was doing anything wrong in the moment. And this is an example of Sarah having subconscious race bias in her teaching. Now, subconscious race bias is one of the biggest problems in the Midwest, especially in small towns, because the racial colorblindness that many small communities think they have is simply not there. Now, racial colorblindness is a general term that people think that they aren't racist. And this is due to the low diversity in a lot of Midwestern communities, where because there aren't that many people there of ethnic minorities, the people are just used to a bunch of white people being around. So they are familiar with that, and they think that's good, because people are happy with what they're familiar with. And in 2013, the National Public Radio did a language study in Midwest communication online, and found that the Midwest uses the most foul racist language out of any region in the United States when used in an actual negative context. This further proves the idea that Midwestern rural communities have a large racist subconscious bias when compared with the rest of the United States. Now, another part of this racist bias in small communities is that they're simply uninformed of a lot of cultural issues. An example of this is the felony criminal justice system in the United States currently. The way it is set up is that felons are stripped of a lot of the rights normal citizens have, which seems reasonable. However, the felon system is administered towards African Americans about 50% more than a white criminal of the same crime, meaning that African Americans are ending up in a system where they're effectively under new Jim Crow standards. That is the title of the article by Michelle Alexander she wrote last year, delving in on this topic. Now, it is not necessarily a surprising thing that this happens, because 40% of Americans are aware of this felon issue, but, like I said, due to the lack of information, only 10% of rural Americans in the Midwest are aware of this felon problem in the U.S. Now, actually improving upon these racial injustices in the U.S. is very difficult. And some cultural researchers named Ann Carabin and Kelly Johnson conducted a 16-week study 2 years ago that delved into helping teachers be more culturally inclusive in their education programs. And at the end of this research project, they found that 50% of the participating teachers didn't change their classes in any way. Now, the reason they did this was because of culture shock. Culture shock is a term for when you are exposed to something completely different from the life you know and simply can't handle all of the new information. So these teachers were so overwhelmed that they just couldn't bother and couldn't handle trying to teach all this new information to their students. Now, getting over culture shock is a very difficult hurdle for teachers, and in 2015, some race researchers named Vanessa Sensky, Corey Brown, and Kenneth Fashing wrote in an article called The Permanence of Racism in Teacher Education, where they found that many teachers, in addition to that cultural shock, don't care enough about these racial injustices to bother teaching it, especially in elementary, middle, and high school. Because the people who do care a lot about these issues will end up in colleges teaching other adults about racial injustice. And overall, improving these racial injustice practices in these Midwest communities is very difficult. In 2004, the American Educational Research Foundation did a study on the effects of race education nationwide. And they found that the only good way to teach about increasing diverse knowledge among students is by exposing them to other cultures. And that's very hard when you live in a small rural community. So the only true way to improve this is by exposing children to diverse cultures through trips, exchange students, and just overall more education. Thank you.